Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 6, Episode 8. Ain't it great? But wait, didn't I say that last week was Episode 8? I did, and I made a mistake. I can't make that rhyme. Yes, last week I kept saying Episode 8, Episode 8, Episode 8, and I was just counting wrong. This week is Episode 8, and that's okay, because it's okay to make mistakes. It's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And this is now the third version of what this episode was going to be. So first, I had my original topic that I planned out weeks ago. I threw that out the window in favor of another topic. And then this very morning, that topic got modified a little bit because my lovely wife, Heather, volunteered to be on the show. And so Heather is here now, too.
Hello.
Yay, thank you for being here. So you don't even totally know what we're talking about today.
I asked you, and you're like, you're just going to have to find out.
Well, yeah, that's what I said now, but prior to that, I told you what I was going to do a thing, and you're like, oh, I'd listen to that. I can help out with that. And that's why I was like, oh, great, that would be cool.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. But I know you were interested in it.
All right, cool. Yeah. Let's go.
So there's a couple different little topics that I feel like they're all connected.
Okay.
The biggest thing is over the past few, I think, hopefully as human beings, we're always trying to get better and better, right? And trying to improve and become better.
It's quite the opening statement there.
And that's an ongoing thing. Over the past few weeks, I have noticed several areas that I really need to work on. It's not even work on. It's mindset shifts, which we talked about on the couples table this week.
Mind shifts.
I don't know. It is a mind shift.
It is.
Yeah. And also just other ways that it's just sort of things that aren't necessarily the best about myself that I recognize that I should probably work on to be happier with myself and also be happier with other people. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to talk about the microphones that we're using because I've been using different microphones every episode this season. And because you're here now, it lets me include even more than I could before.
Great.
So I am on the 512 Audio Skylight. Right? It's a Skylight. They have the Skylight and the Limelight. And I get them mixed up. This is the Skylight. It's the one that kind of looks like an air filter for a car when it doesn't have a windscreen on it that I'm using right now. But it's a really, really, really nice condenser microphone. We opened it live on the couples table months ago when I got it, like last summer. And Heather is on the Shure MV7X. So it's the XLR only version of the MV7, which is one of my favorite mics to recommend because I think it sounds really, really good. And it is like $150, maybe a little more than that. If you love the MV7, but you don't need USB features, there you go. Shure MV7X. So that's what we're using today.
Cool.
If anybody was curious, I just want to make sure I'm talking into the right part of this microphone. All right, so let's dive into today's topic. We'll start easy, okay? For the first thing. The first thing kind of touches on something we talked about in the most recent episode of the Couples Table. Great. Which has to do with Doc Rock.
Yes, our
yes.
sensei.
Now we're going to talk all the smack about Doc Rock. So sorry, no, I'm kidding. Doc has been somebody who really tries to you want to talk about mindset shifts.
Yeah, he's a coach. He's a
shift kicker.
He's a mentor to the creator community.
Yes.
He's also the community manager for Ecamm Live.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's got his own YouTube channel and all that. So this past week, he was having a live stream in the middle of the day, and I just happened to catch part of it. And I was like, oh, Doc's streaming while I'm eating lunch. Cool. And I just watched the stream, and I joined like an hour into the stream. And he said, as soon as I joined, he was like, Tom, you're here. Go back to the beginning and watch the beginning because I did a whole heartfelt thing for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know what that was about. And so I watched it, and it really, really helped. It helped take all of this stuff that I've been trying to think about, and it just sort of reframed it in a way that made it really helpful.
So what have you been thinking about?
So it has to do with, the idea of criticism that comes from not sponsored content that people think is sponsored. And obviously, if you're listening to this show, you know that bothers me when I go out of my way to try and be as transparent as possible, and then people think that they got me, and something is sponsored, whatever it might be. Really drives me crazy. And we've talked about comments before. We've talked about them a lot this season. And what you and I have talked about, what you really said that was a nice revelation was that it doesn't really make sense to tell people to just ignore negative comments because it's really hard to do, right?
Yes, I think that that's asking a creator to almost like dehumanize themselves because you're asking somebody to not feel emotional reaction. And I think that's impossible to do if you want someone to also look at the positive and be like, wow, look at this impact that I've made. You can't you can't
be
pick and
selectively
choose,
emotionally
with your
responsive.
Exactly. So I get where the sentiment is in terms of ignore the troll comments and the negative comments and all of that, but also I also don't want to feel bad if I do read them, because I'm human.
Or if you have a negative reaction, you're like, I'm failing to ignore it or whatever.
Now it's like invalidating how I feel about what someone
So we've
said.
talked about that, and a thing that I'll do is it's very easy if there's a really just off the wall insane comment to just delete it and ignore it.
Super easy.
That is easy.
Yeah.
There's this middle ground where it's like it might be wrong, especially so for example, if somebody comes in and they think that they're exposing a sponsored thing or whatever that's not, and they lay all this criticism out, and even though they're wrong, and even though that's kind of a rude thing that I wouldn't do, they don't seem like an unreasonable person. And I can't help when I encounter that but think if I could just explain type, if I could just, and never once for me has it actually, at least as far as I'm aware, shifted anybody's perspective. Like they've never, I know you've had experiences where people have, I have not.
I have learned that it is more trouble than it's worth because the conversion rate is so low.
Very low. If you were a salesperson, you would be broke.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's just really hard because most people who leave comments don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it the other way around where they're putting themselves in my shoes. I put myself in your shoes and I try to, because it's not, oftentimes with those comments, it's not about trying to get to a common ground. It's about proving you wrong as a creator. Yeah. Because that's what gives them the gotcha feeling of like, haha, I know something you don't, you're wrong or whatever.
Yeah. So what Doc was saying had to do with me, because obviously in videos, I'll say if something is sponsored or if I got something for free. And a lot of times the opposite of that is saying when things aren't. Like, this isn't sponsored. I paid for this amount of money. And, you can do joking ways. Like, I remember there's one video I did where I think it was the ATEM mini video where I was like, this video is sponsored by me and my paycheck because I paid for all this stuff. And, like, that's funny. And people leave me comments saying that that's funny. Yeah. So you can do things like that. Or
it's a very Tom thing to say.
Next week's video is going to be about the Sony FX3. And in that, I say this video is not sponsored. And to prove it, I'll be wearing a Canon shirt for the rest of the video. So, like, you can play with it.
I am very excited to see what people say because I'm going to gotcha right back if they're like, oh, this video is totally sponsored. Are you kidding?
How could it? I promise you it's not. Yeah. Because we have both seen agreements from companies where they're like, you cannot use other
brand. Yeah, you can't use any other brand's products.
Usually what a company will say is if our company
does not have make that product, like a USB cable or something, so then you can use it.
Right, yeah. If it's something that the company doesn't make, then you can use a competitor. But if it's something they make, no. And so clearly that's not a thing. But what Doc said was basically that every second you spend of your video trying to justify yourself to these people who are just coming out of nowhere and laying criticism and don't really care about anything else, you're taking that away from everybody else who is there and wants to be there for you. And I know that sounds really, really simple, but for me, that just reframed things in a huge way of, it's not so much about ignoring that, it's focusing on this. Yeah. And so that's, because I'll still see those, I'll still have reactions, I'll delete them when I want to delete them, but it doesn't need to be my main, as I'm recording this video, I need to think of, deflecting every negative thing that comes in. And another thing Doc said is does Apple spend a lot of time in their commercials talking about Samsung and Dell and HP? It's never once, actually. They just talk about their own thing and focus on that. And obviously they have people who dislike them, but they don't care about, they focus on the people, why do you care about the person who's not even buying your product?
Right, exactly.
Who cares? Yeah. So, and in this case, it's not that I'm selling a product, but it's the person who cares about is invested in.
But it's the same thing. And this is what I said on the couples table is why would you invest any time or effort into a person who's not even a customer and clearly is resentful
and doesn't want to be.
Yeah, does not want to be when you have VIP people packed in your store ready to spend time with you, buy every single thing that you want to talk about. Yeah. And so I shifted it into a very business, it's honestly bad business practice to be spending time on these people. Yeah. Because they're not even gonna be a subscriber. So just go. Mm-hmm. But then, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's kind of you built a treehouse and we're all going to come hang out, and everyone that wants to be there is obviously there by choice. And then there's like the bully on the street who's just this like, who's just like putting you down for whatever, just because their treehouse, they don't even have one, so they're just mad
wish
about
they had my treehouse. But it also like connected to Doc. A couple weeks ago when we were in San Diego for the Ecamm meetup that we went to.
Yeah.
Everybody from Ecamm was there. So like Ken and Glenn, who started the company, everyone who's been there for years and years and years. And we were talking to some of the customer service people, and Ecamm's customer service team is very, very small. But they're real people, and they were very proud to say like their average response time is 2 hours despite that. But they are, in a very unique way, able to turn away belligerent customers. So if a customer gets on the phone or whatever and starts screaming at them, cussing at them, they can end the call. They don't have to put up with it. And I think
that's a company value from the top.
I think that is
Ken
really
and
cool.
Glenn, the founders, straight up said, it's not for you.
And that was the thing, is that's
the product is not for you.
When I said, because I was talking to the head customer service rep, and she was like, and I said, it's really cool you can do that. And she said, well, that's when I bring that up to them, the owners of the company, they say like, well, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, what an awesome perspective of, because clearly people who like Ecamm really like it.
Yeah.
And its value is obvious. Why do you need to spend a bunch of time convincing people who don't even want it? It's $400 a year is going to sound really expensive.
Then cool.
It's not for you and you don't stream.
Next. Yeah.
But we'll pay it without even out, because we use it literally right now as we're streaming this to the Just Great More community. So Ecamm lives in our computers every day. So it's just not for everyone. And that same perspective applies really well. So that's a kind of a simple one, but it was a huge mind shift, not just to do with sponsored things, sorry. It's stuck in my brain.
It's okay. Just say mind shift. Let's go with it.
Yeah. And
sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. And it is a cool thing to focus on the people who are there for you instead of defending yourself from the people who are out to get you. And it's when you're making something, it's natural to think, that's part of why it is like part of why I address those things is I think of, I'm making this video, I say this thing, I'm going to get 50 comments that bring up that point unless I say, but blah, 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 or like, this is
all the disclaimers.
Yeah. So the disclaimers aren't just out of nowhere. They're to just stop those conversations from happening before they even start, because I'd rather focus on the actual subject and not this other thing, but the other thing has to be addressed in some way.
And I know we've talked about this before, but that totally bugs me. Like, it's because obviously like I'm biased, right? But there's a lot of people who are subscribed to your channel because they genuinely like your content. And for them to have to sit there,
that's what Doc was saying. Why do they need to do that?
Have to explain yourself. Yeah, like I don't even care if this videos are sponsored or not. Like you don't gotta tell me.
There are people who are actually happy because they want me to get paid for the stuff that I do.
And I can't help but roll my eyes because I know you're doing it for this like dude who's mad.
Well, and that's why this has been very, very helpful for me. So what I have decided to do from now on is, it's basically, I even updated the ethics statement on our website that says, if I don't say a video is sponsored, it's not sponsored.
So you're just not going to say it. You're not going to spend any time.
Unless, sometimes like it makes sense or it's funny or it wedges its way in, but I'm not going to spend, here's the first minute of the video telling you all that. If something is provided for free, I am legally obligated to disclose that. That is very different.
Because I noticed, and I'm not saying you're doing this wrong, but like, how many sponsored videos have you even done? Like a handful.
Well, because true sponsorships, which, if you're behind the scenes on things where it's like, here's an agreement, you're getting a paycheck, you're getting that.
Right.
I've only done 6 maybe in 300 videos.
So a handful.
Yeah. But free stuff, where the mic I'm using right now was sent to me for free. So I need to disclose that if I make a video about this microphone.
Because I was going to say, I've heard you say the word sponsored more often, and I'm like, that doesn't correlate with how many sponsorships you've actually done.
But also other people don't know that. Like, they don't know. And if somebody happens to see one of the 6 sponsored videos I did, they don't know that the other 300 aren't also that. So, I know that ratio, but they don't. And for the average viewer, they equate, if GoPro sends you a GoPro, that means you're sponsored by GoPro.
Right.
Even though GoPro's like, here's a GoPro, we don't care if we make a video about it or not. And it's like, it is absolutely not a sponsorship. Obviously, it's a marketing tactic on their end, because they're like, if you do make a video with it and people ask what you use, you'll say the GoPro. So I know they're not doing it just out of charity, but that's not an actual sponsorship. But for the average YouTube viewer, it's all one and the same. getting a free product, getting whatever. And sure, like if you get something for free, it's important to acknowledge that, you know, if I'm telling you, wow, this thing is amazing and it's $1,500, but I didn't spend my $1,500 on it versus you who's that's an important thing to address.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I've decided to do is address it when necessary, which is mainly when I need to, when something was provided for free or there is a sponsored video.
Yeah, when you have the obligation to do so.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm just not. And then when people show up in the comments, by and large, just ignore them and focus on the others. And that might mean ignoring them or it might mean deleting it. But literally, that's just where it's like, I don't have the energy to have this discussion anymore. And if you're showing up doing this, I don't even want you here. Like, why am I trying to convince you to come to my part? I don't want you here.
Yeah. Go away.
Yeah. Like, why? If someone showed up to our front door and started acting like that, why would we try to beg them to want to come into our house?
Yeah, go away.
Yeah, I would call the police. Like, I wouldn't. The moderators. So anyway, that was it sounds very simple.
Yeah.
But just the things that I've been talking about in episodes this season, the things we've been talking about on the couples table, it was a really cool, simple way of looking at things where it's like, focus on the people who are there. Stop trying to defend and focus on the people who don't care and aren't there and are just being critical.
There, yeah.
And it doesn't mean
don't want to be there.
It doesn't mean you have to ignore it, because like we said, it's very hard to ignore negative stuff and be a human. But it just means your perspective and your context and your focus is different. If I have taken care of all these people and I'm just sitting here just hanging out, and somebody shows up and says something, then maybe I can engage with that if I choose to, or I can just go play Wordle or something.
Spend the time with the people who are at the party.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I needed. So that was my first giant revelation. Now, beyond that, I've had a few other revelations that are... So here was my thought for having this episode before I knew you were going to be here on it, was that when I plan out a podcast episode, even though it's not heavily scripted, I outline it and I try my best to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And so what that means is I'm dealing with topics that I'm interested in, topics that I've thought about, topics that I've planned out, and it can make it seem sometimes when I come in here and say stuff like I'm speaking from a perspective where at least I think I have it all figured out, or I have experience. Not, it's up to everyone else to justify that, but it kind of is like I've got this figured out, now I'm sharing it with you sort of thing. And so I thought it might be interesting to explore, like, here's areas where I don't have anything figured out and I'm just working through it.
Yeah.
And that relates to personal stuff, but also to YouTube as well, because it's, of course, all connected, and creating stuff is all connected. And so a big one, there's a lot of them, but the two biggest ones that popped up are feelings of jealousy and insecurity, and me realizing, oh, wow, I really struggle with both of those a lot, more than I realized.
I just want to, first of all, give you credit for acknowledging this, not only to yourself, but to the whole world through a podcast. That says a lot about you.
I don't think the whole world's listening to this podcast.
But I mean, it's out there.
It's out there. But I like to think of myself as I'm not a judgy person. I'm a very accepting person. I like to, I know I can always try to be more self-confident and stuff, and that's good. But I also realize a lot of stuff, especially like, even on this show, I've talked about things that I don't like, YouTube trends, YouTube whatevers that I don't like. And well, there's some truth to that. If I watch a channel and I see something somebody does that I really don't like, like... It's
hard not to.
It's good to know that. It's good to know, you know what, I don't like that, so I don't want to do that. And it's good to recognize that so that I don't do that. But what I've also noticed is a lot of it stems from my own jealousy and insecurity. Either one or the other, or a combination of both. So what made you come to this realization? So, okay, I think that actually there's been a lot of things, but it was me it was several things happen. I don't really want to go into total details on these, but of me making judgments on people, other creators, people, whatever, and then coming to realize I was completely wrong. Like, I would think someone was doing something for a specific reason. I would make that judgment. I wouldn't write it out or send them a message, but I would personally in my brain, I would file it under this person's this way, this person's that way. And then I would like interact with the person, or something would happen where I was like, oh my God, I was entirely wrong. Like, it wasn't correct at all. And I just felt really dumb for doing that. Now you do need to use, we'll get to judging versus judgment. Okay. I'm confused and I need help figuring out what the difference is, but that's after this. So that's happened a few times. And then there was the thing that I think really like the thing that I think really tipped it off for me is one of my favorite channels, Mr. Joel Haver, who's been going strong.
Yes.
He's been doing great stuff forever. He like a while ago just bought a van to travel around the country and figure things out after like his channel exploded. And I always admire his like super independent streak. He was from like the East Coast. He did go to New York Film School, but he lived in a very small town. He had like, I don't call it like outsider art, but it was kind of like an outsider art perspective. It was like, I don't care what other people are doing. I'm doing things my way. Mm-hmm. And it was really encouraging to me to see his channel grow and explode last year, because it was like, wow, people actually appreciate that and connect with it. So he's going around the country on his van tour, gets to California because that's where there's a lot of people, starts doing collabs with people, and then
did you get jealous?
Not jealous
of him, but somebody else.
It's insecure. I got insecure.
Okay.
Well, so he's going around hanging out with other people, and then he posts a video where he's like, I got a place here, moved into like with a bunch of creators. Like, I know I said I would never do that. Once I got here, I just wanted to do it. So now he's one of the like, I'm a YouTuber, lives in LA in a house with 4 other YouTubers. And I was just like, at first, I don't feel this way anymore, but at first I was like bummed. And I was like, and then I was like, that's a stupid thing to be bummed out about.
No, well, let's talk it out.
Yeah.
Why did you feel that way?
So here, the reason I'm using this example is because I've already thought it out. And then that can maybe be applied to other things that I haven't fully thought out. But I was thinking, why am I bummed? What, like, this is a good thing happening to a good person that I literally want to succeed.
Can I make a hypothesis?
Well, I know what it was for me, so I wonder what your hypothesis is.
My hypothesis is kind of the same thing of like how people view sponsorships, because it hasn't been painted in a good light often. So same thing, YouTuber moves into YouTuber house, I don't even think there has been good things said of that kind of experience. So,
well, because I think the good versions of it you don't really hear about.
Yeah, because it's not drama, it's not
it's just people who have the same job and share rent.
It's like us.
Yeah, honestly, yes. And so what I realized bothered me was I have always viewed that, like the LA living with other people, as a sort of a different thing. For like, okay, now it's the same group of people and everybody just sort of like lives in each other's world, and it's like, I don't feel like I relate to that, I don't feel connected to that, I don't feel anything like that. That's just how I've always felt about it. And then when I find someone who it feels like, wow, we have like the same values, the same perspective, the same whatever,
and then,
suddenly they did the thing that I was like, when really all it was, like, as he even says in a video, is like, I never thought I would do this, I didn't want to do this, but as soon as I got here, I met a bunch of people. It feels like we've been friends forever. Like, I want to stay here longer. It didn't make sense to live in a van. So we just all got like a place together, and now I can work on projects and do stuff. And it's like the least flashy, the least self-centered thing. And the content he's making hasn't changed. Like his actual videos that he publishes, the same quirkiness, same oddness, same outsider, like independent perspective. So nothing has actually changed. And that was a weird thing of like the insecurity part. I realized it wasn't jealousy, because I do not want to live in a house with 4 other people. Like,
I know you don't.
I'm tired. I like having a mortgage where we don't rent. Like,
yeah, no,
yes,
I get it.
Not jealous of that, but very insecure of like, okay, I feel like it was just like, I thought it was like a betrayal of values that it wasn't. And the same thing goes when there are early on in my YouTube experience. I think I've gone too hard with the like anti-sponsorship, anti-this, anti-that thing. And then I feel like, I don't know how to describe the insecurity feeling, but it almost makes me feel like I am doing something wrong, or like, because I thought we were on the same page and they did something different,
you feel like
left behind, or even though this person doesn't know I exist in this case.
Yeah.
But in applying it to other situations, I feel, like left behind, or like, I don't know, like grown out of, or wrong. Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's and I realized a lot, so much of when I have internal criticisms of someone or something, sometimes it's a valid criticism. Like, I can definitely point to, here's a YouTube channel that was succeeding. The person started making only sponsored videos and their channel died. And I can point to like,
or at least plateaued.
And I mean, in some cases, literally like backwards growth. But you can point to that. Like, well, all the videos were amazing. not that sponsored videos can't be amazing, but when every video just seems to kind of be a low effort ad for a product, and then clearly everyone else lost interest too, and the channel died. That's a thing that happens, and you can look at that and go like, I think that's why that happened. There could be other things behind it. I don't even know the person's story though. I don't know if they're like, I hate sponsored stuff, but you know what? My wife was in the hospital and crazy medical bills, so when Squarespace shows up, like, yeah, I'm going to do a Squarespace video. I don't know the details of that.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to recognize, like, okay, this can have that effect on something. I should be aware of that, but leave out the part where then I'm now making a judgment on somebody else that I'm not. And this, again, I'm using YouTube as an example because it's so relevant to what we're talking about here, and it's an easy example, but that also applies to any other time. I've just realized, like, so many times I feel critical of people or judgmental of people, and it has nothing to do with them. It's the same thing as the negative commenters we're talking about, like, that show up and say that. I'm just, my own insecurities are coming back to me. My own jealousies of things are coming back to me, whatever it might be. And it has nothing to do with them, and it's all on me. And I realize that happens most of the time if I'm making a judgment on someone. So
you're projecting insecurity.
What I've been doing is when I catch myself having those thoughts, I'm trying to think of, let's take that person out of it or that situation out of it. What is it that I'm like insecure about here? And what I'd like to do is get to a point where I just don't have those thoughts nearly as often.
I think that's really admirable for you to do.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I know I don't feel insecure about that, but I think what I'm describing is pretty normal, but I also...
Yeah, but people don't like... It's hard to stop and recognize that, and...
Because like I said, I don't feel like I'm a judgy person. Like, I don't... Whatever somebody does, if somebody...
Yeah, you do you, boo-boo.
I just want people to be happy and, like, healthy. And if someone's doing something that they're happy and they're taken care of, like, whatever it is, I'm happy for you. And... That's a genuine thing that I feel like, but then
if it's a reflection of what you're insecure about, maybe you think of it differently.
Right. Exactly. And there's, now that, like, I feel like, oh man, semi close to that silver play button landmark, but now there's people who started after me that are just zipping by me time and time again. And it's like, I'm trying very hard to remember to be genuinely excited for them and not feel like, their success is not my failure.
Yes. Say it again.
Their success is not my failure. But it's, like, you can't help but, like, I've had those thoughts where there's like, I'll see another channel grow faster, and I might actually, it might be true that honestly, like, their content might not be the best, or at least I don't think it's the best, but clearly something's working. I don't know what it is, and just maybe it's just not for me. But then I kind of feel like I'm trying really hard, and they're like, this person over here, like, there are other times where it's like, oh my God, this person's putting in so much effort. Like, I want them to have, I can actively feel myself like, please be able to go full time. Please be able to do this. Please be able to do that. But there's other times where I feel like it's just jealousy, and that's all that it is. And it's like, it does. And I'm trying to remember to get to a point where I'm like actually excited for people all of the time. Because it happens, like, when we have friends that have good things happen to them, I'm not jealous and angry. I'm happy for them. Right. I'm excited for them. Yeah. And I want to feel like that for everybody's accomplishments, and not go like, your accomplishment has nothing to do with my, like, our journeys are our own, and they're separate and they're different.
Yeah. And your progress is your progress, and you should be happy about where you are.
At your own pace.
Other people, be happy about their thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is hard sometimes.
I really don't have anything to add to this, because the fact that you're admitting this to yourself and out loud and taking the time to process, I think such a big takeaway here is that, oh wow, Tom has very normal feelings like every other human being on the planet.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, is that I'm not just a monster who's
stop. Oh my gosh. But I just, like you said, with what we do as content creators, it's our job. It's a personal creative expression. Like, what you're going through internally is going to reflect on your channel and what you're creating. And so it's almost like this is part of it, right? This is part of the I don't know, the creator evolution of the journey, which sounds like cheesy and weird, but if we're doing this forever, right?
Well, that's one thing I've learned about a creative thing is like you could look at it on a surface level and be, which is kind of what I would do if I were being a judgy mindset, right. Is I would say, oh, you're just making YouTube videos about like audio video tech. Like step off the soapbox and the high horse there for a little bit. But the flip side to that is you're doing a creative endeavor that, like you said, you're putting yourself into it. It's
you're making something that only you can. That's like what creating
and
is.
You're putting stuff out there for other people. So you like being kind of aware of stuff is very important. It's it like you learn about yourself by doing anything creative. It doesn't have to be like a YouTube channel, but if you paint a bunch of paintings, you're going to learn a lot about yourself by the stuff that comes out and the way you approach your good paintings and your bad paintings and all that kind of stuff. So that has been like the biggest revelation to me was that if I had to do like a self-evaluation survey, I would say that I'm not a judgy person and I'm, not super insecure, but then realizing like, wow, there is actually a lot there that I kind of didn't realize.
Improvement.
There's definitely room for improvement. There's just more there than I realized that there was. Yeah. And I was mistaking it for like, well, I'm just being, like critical for the purpose of understanding why I feel that way. So I'm being critical of other people. And that's where I was talking about judgment versus judgmental. Because the other example I have is last time I was in Sacramento for a work conference. I was trying to cross a street near the state capitol.
Okay.
And I was at the crosswalk to go, and there was a guy on the other side. There's always people outside of the state capitol doing like demonstrations and protests. This guy was not one of those people. Okay. This was a man who was missing most of his clothes.
Oh.
Most of his clothes. He was just screaming loud. He didn't look right. And he was also brandishing in the air a giant real sword.
Oh.
And just swinging a real just sword. Like a Game of Thrones sword in the air. And so I crossed the other way. Didn't go. I was supposed to go like to him.
Okay.
And I didn't do that. And I was definitely making a judgment call about this person who I don't know. I don't know his situation. I don't know what he's doing.
Honestly, I don't think you're making a judgment call about that person. I think that any normal person is okay. You're not gonna walk into a threatening situation. I guess the judgment is that there's a potential threat there.
Yeah, I mean, he had a sword, but but I mean, like, I like that example because it's so big and like ridiculous.
Right,
so
it's very obvious.
Everybody's obviously like, you were probably right to not go near the half-naked guy with the sword.
Don't tell me this was like a play.
No. He was just a crazy man. I think got arrested. Okay. Like he was mentally unsound. But that I did make a judgment on him. I don't know. And in that case, I don't think that it was the wrong thing to do. But in other cases, I do think it's sort of, I think you could do a more subtle one if you want to bring it back to YouTube. When you watch those channels and those creators where it really does feel like, I know, like, the things that do give sponsored videos a bad name, the things that kind of where it's just like something about this feels off. And I am being critical and I am being judgy, but I feel like I'm also making a judgment call of like, this is why I don't think I trust this person. And like, I guess understanding if it's coming from a place of insecurity or not. If it's tied to one of your insecurities, it maybe is an inaccurate judgment, but if you don't feel that it's an insecurity, maybe you are just making a critical judgment that might be, I don't know. That's why I'm like, it's very gray.
I mean, I don't think that there's like a right or wrong, but the fact that you're aware of it is big.
I guess it's just you have to be aware. If you feel yourself judging someone or something, just being aware of why you're judging or what you're judging.
I mean, an example for me is like I cannot to this day get myself to watch a Mr. Beast video. Like I just can't. And I'm sure I'm being judgy. I have respect for him. He's a young person who, built an empire. He is an advocate for the platform that our life is built on. I have respect for him for a fellow content creator. Yeah. But like, I have zero interest in watching his content.
Yeah.
I just like, it's almost like as soon as I see his face like make his way into my home tab, I just like I can't. I don't know. So I don't know what that says about me, but
yeah, I don't know, because I understand what you're saying, and I don't know, because there's a thing of like, this is not for me, which is important to recognize.
And I know for a fact I'm not jealous. Like, it's not
because you don't want that.
Yeah, I don't want that. So it's not jealousy, and I don't think it's insecurity either, because I feel like pretty confident in I don't know. I don't think it's insecurity. Do you?
I think for me, speaking for myself, because I don't want to speak for anyone else, I think it might be tied to insecurity. The insecurity of so many more people liking that than not just what I make, but also the stuff I like, and feeling like I wish they didn't like that as much.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but see, I've come to accept that, like, I don't like mainstream stuff. Like, oftentimes I don't like.
Yeah. Oh, welcome to my life.
Like yesterday, I found a new YouTube channel, and I was literally like about to binge this channel and fall asleep to it, because I was just so excited for discovering this channel. It's about colored pencils.
Yeah.
Like, coloring with colored pencils. And you know, it's like a 50,000 subscriber channel, and the production is like not good. It's just straight up not good. Like, even I can say that, but like, it just made me so happy. And you know, I told you this morning, I was like, I cannot wait to watch more of these YouTube videos. So like, I don't, you know, I know that's not a reflection of like me as a creator, but in terms of what I watch, I just stay away from things that make me feel weird, and, you know, watch things that make me feel good. But I think that's you know, I like to be checked.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's...
I want to be checked, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe one time I'll watch a Mr. Beast video. But watch I become his number one fan. Like, who knows?
Did you see the most recent one?
Yeah, I want to be like, this is what I've been missing out on this whole time.
I mean, so to bring up that point, I haven't watched a ton, but I have watched a few just to know
what is it all
to
about.
be aware of.
Yeah.
And the thought I have is like, oh, this isn't for me. But it's not bad. It's just not for me. And I can definitely recognize why it's enticing, why it's entertaining, why it's exciting. And it's just not for me. Like, it's just not what I would want to spend. Because
like, on the other hand, I know I'm starting to like
no, it's okay.
Tangent this. But I love PewDiePie. Like,
right, you do.
He's probably like my favorite YouTube channel, and he's like the biggest one. Right. And I totally love him. He is straight up. I will tell Tom like, "Oh my god, PewDiePie put a new video," blah blah blah, and like his content is about everything.
Yeah,
and I absolutely love it. So,
well, I mean, for me, the reason I think that like the Mr. Beast stuff is not for me is because it is like, you can't help but think of like his Squid Games video, where it's literally a Hollywood level production with crews and sound stages and sets and like, and that's cool and it's very well done, but it's also like, that's not what I like from YouTube. And maybe that's just me being weird, because it's like I could watch something like that on Hulu, but YouTube is where I want to watch. If I watch a channel that has good production value, I want it to be because that person really sharpen their skills to make that happen. I want to watch the bad production quality colored pencil channel because I feel like I'm connecting with this person about something they're passionate about. And then when I see something that just feels like a network television show, it doesn't feel like that. And that's why I personally don't like that. But it's not bad. And, you know, watching it wasn't like, oh, the video delivers exactly what the video says it's going to. It's for what it is. It's very well done. It's definitely entertaining. It's clearly geared towards a younger audience. So like, I get that. And, but it's also like, yeah, it's not for me at all. Okay. So those were my jealousy and insecurity. And then I also have one other thing, which I've realized that I've been struggling with. And now the last like revelation is one I don't even fully understand, but it's something I've been realizing in the last like day or two. And it has to do with, this is just going to make me sound like the worst person in the world. I was saying I'm insecure, I'm jealous, and now I feel like I'm the victim. Like I have a victim mentality. So I don't know how to phrase. I've been thinking about how to approach this because I've been trying to figure this out. So
okay.
Last week the episode was all about being self-employed.
Sure.
And how much it can suck when you have a job because people sometimes treat you terribly when you have a job. And there are times when I was an employee where I did feel like a victim, because it would be, it would be something like, I'm at work early every day, I'm staying late every day, I'm going above and beyond in my responsibilities for years on end. And like literally, I remember my previous, well, not my previous, but my first school I worked at for 5 years. 5 years, I don't want to say I didn't make any mistakes. I definitely made mistakes, but most of them only I knew about.
Right.
Nothing that really affected anybody else. And I went above and beyond, did all this stuff. There was one time I made a mistake, and it wasn't even anything bad. It was basically like my calendar got messed up and I missed an event, which ultimately didn't really matter. It wasn't like it was my event or I was hosting. I just missed going to an event. And I was like treated so badly for doing this. And it made me feel like, what it's like if you get to work early, say you have a job and you leave an hour late every single day, and then one day after 5 years you're 10 minutes late and everyone's like, you need to work on your attendance. And it's like, but what about like, does that not count for anything? Like, I feel like there's enough to balance out this point of view. And I feel like, I don't want to say that makes you feel like a victim, those kinds of things, but in my feelings, that's the best word I can use to describe it, is like, it's I think there's a bit of entitlement and there's a bit of victim. Like, I feel like I'm victimized, I've been wronged, and I am entitled to be treated better. And I think sometimes, this is where it's hard to figure out these feelings, I think sometimes that's important. I think...
I agree, because you need to stand up for yourself. No one else is going to advocate for you.
You need to stand up, you need to advocate and stand up for yourself, and you need to know when to do that. But you also... And I definitely, during my working time, struggled with, like, I need to stand up and advocate for myself, but I need to learn how to do it in a way that's not like confrontational, that's not aggressive,
sure. Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. And I definitely took a while to learn how to do that.
Yeah, same.
So I think it's important to kind of recognize when you are in those situations. And I think, I'm trying to think of other examples, but... there are other times. So there are times where I think it's correct, like you are actually wronged and you feel like the victim, and maybe you are. And there are other times where you have, like, or at least I have the same feeling, and I realize it's not so much that I'm the victim, but I feel it's more of like the entitlement. Like, I'm not getting what I, for some reason, feel like I'm entitled to. And that is more connected to personal pride, of like, my pride hurts. Like, I should, like I'll be open and honest here. There have been times where you and I have had discussions.
Wow. Put it out there. Let's go.
No, but I mean, like, okay, so I'll say there are times where I have messed up, because, everybody makes mistakes, but there have been times over the years where I've made a mistake and it has caused us to have a discussion.
a talk, quote unquote.
Yes. Which, like, by the way, is not like a screaming match or anything, but like, it's a talk. You have strong feelings, I have strong feelings, and we try to work through them and get on the same page together. And there are times we've had to do that because I have made a mistake or not communicated well, or I have done something that caused it. And there are times where it's like, okay, here's the issue. This is what we're talking about. And then in my mind, I will think like, but I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and what about all this? And it's almost like I should get credit for all the times I didn't mess up, and that should erase that. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit.
You've said this exact wording during our talks.
I know.
Doesn't that count for anything?
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, if it's related, I think that it should, but at other times there's not, and it's more of like my pride. I feel like it's connected to like personal pride is the only thing I can say, where it's like my ego is hurt.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you should, in a work situation, I use work as an example, because I think you kind of should have pride, and not an ego, but kind of like, you do need to stand up and advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think in interpersonal relationships, like,
can get in the way for sure.
I think issues of pride, like, if you realize that you're doing something out of pride, it should just be thrown out the window immediately, because that's not going to help the two of you. Oh my God, that's not going to help the two of you get on the same page at all. So anyway, the long story long is, these are all feelings that I'm like struggling to figure out. And it's sort of like it all kind of hit at once. Insecurity. And to bring it all the way back to the beginning of the show, a lot of the like stuff Doc was talking about monetization and me dealing with people, that comes from insecurity of how like the fact that someone is misinterpreting something. Yeah. So there's,
because of course you want people to have a positive reaction to what you're creating.
I hate the idea that someone doesn't like me. Like, I need to fix that.
Right.
So there's insecurity, there's jealousy, there's judginess, and then there's like a victim mentality / pride, like personal pride issue, all of which are like things on a spectrum. So there's, if you're just saying mean, like it's easy to say like you should just not be mean to people. Shoot, if I'm being mean to someone, I should not be mean. But I feel like these are all things where
like you should have pride, but
there's like a lot of gray areas,
right?
Yeah, like I don't want to be a judgmental person towards others, but I also want to be able to use my judgment to protect myself from a naked man wielding a sword. So like and finding the balance, and there is no balance because there's no answer. It's like literally every situation you encounter every day, all the time, you have to like stop and analyze. And a thing that I am realizing, and I might have just realized this like very recently, is I'm an anxious and an impatient person. And so
yes.
So one of the things that causes a lot of anxiety is uncertainty.
Yes.
And that could be at any degree, whether it's big things about an upcoming trip, or just, what are we going to have for dinner? Does this look okay? Like anything. So the way that my impulse is to handle that, to soothe that anxiety, is to get things like sorted and settled. And that causes me to be impatient. So instead of letting something kind of like pop up and figure out and happen on its own, it's very much like try to get smacked down right away and like pinned down even before it's ready to be. And
anchor it in. Yeah.
Yes. And so I forget why I brought that up. Other than that, this is now my therapy session.
You're an anxious, impatient person. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, but there was a reason I brought that up, and honestly, I can't remember what it was. I'm also now a forgetful person. But it's just like all of these things that happen, like that impatience causes me to then not think things over and process things. Whereas I notice this with you, and it's something I really admire with you. It's something I've had to learn when we communicate at any time is, and it wasn't actually till you explained that you had to learn to do this with your dad that I learned, is well, you were talking to your dad like a year ago about something, and he was really struggling to like explain his side of it. And you said that you just stopped talking and let him figure out. And it took him a really long time to like sit there and process thoughts. And then finally, like he had it and he got it out.
Yeah. Like 20 minutes later, it took
a long time. And I have noticed that I have noticed that you're very similar sometimes where
I don't know what I'm thinking. It's like the conclusion isn't there. I have a feeling, but I don't know what it means.
And my impulse, because when you say like, oh, if there's something on my mind or something here, is I need to know what it is right away so that I can know what it is, address it, we can get it fixed. And so for a long time, my impulse was to try to pull it out as quickly as possible.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't work because that's not how you work.
Nope.
And so what I've learned is, okay, there's an issue, there's something on the mind, there's something being worked through. I have to just sit and wait and not even talk, not distract with other things, not try to push it along or push it in a direction. I just have to sit and wait.
And you're also not in trouble. Like the waiting, you would be antsy.
Yeah, because I would think like I'm going to hear. I would think of all the things that I could have possibly done wrong that now I'm going to be told.
Yeah, you're
about.
Like itching, trying to help. But
and I would never guess correctly any of the times. Like half the time, of course, it wasn't even about me. It was about something else. But I've learned that I just need to sit and wait. You will go through something. And sometimes I even like almost question like, wait, she knows we're still talking, right? Like we're not done. And then you'll say, here's what I think it is. And because you have now processed it. And so that has shown me that I do get really anxious with stuff and I do get really impatient. But there are so many times when you kind of have to sit with something and figure it out and think about it to actually like understand why you're feeling that way, figure out how it fits into other things, and then figure out how you want to act upon it afterwards. And that's been a very hard struggle. So these are all, it sounds like I'm just a mess right now. And my insecurity is now making me feel like people are going to think less of me because I'm working through all this stuff. But that's what I wanted to share was...
No, first of all, everyone will think... if you're
half joking.
Made it to this part of the episode,
right? 50 minutes in.
I'm sure it's because, it's not that you think they think less of you. It's that they think... I think it's admirable for you to put this out there.
These were just things thoughts that I was having and things that I was working through that are related to like content creation and stuff talking about on the podcast, and also not, but it's all kind of related.
Because I have, in my early days of creating, have had an emotional response to watching someone else's content and then tried to, I created content in response to that instead of doing what you did and like, just, do I even want to do this?
Yeah.
Do I have to do the coffee B-roll because everyone around me is?
Right.
And then I did, and I feel like dumb about it.
It feels weird because there's something in you that's like, this doesn't feel like
right. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's 1,000% insecurity. Like I was insecure because I felt like I was doing something wrong. I needed to do what everyone else around me that, I was surrounding myself with people that I admired, that I wanted to, that I felt were like-minded. So why wasn't I doing the same thing? And it's, oh my God, it really sent me to a whole, like, now I got to think about lenses and things that I did not care about.
Right.
And I had to go through that to understand why I felt that way and what I actually wanted to do.
And those people weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's insecurity and
right.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. It's just hard. And I don't think
people.
I don't think there's ever going to be a time where it's like, I've got it all sorted out and it's all fixed, but just recognizing it, like recognizing where all these feelings are coming from, because going back to what I said, like the thing that really started pointing it out as far as the judgment stuff goes was the times I've been proven completely wrong. Yeah, where I make a judgment about somebody or something, and then I'm just proven objectively wrong. Like I just was not at all on.
It's humbling.
With it. Yeah, and then realizing, gosh, that's crummy. Like
you feel bad.
I feel bad, and I feel bad. I feel like I wasted a bunch of time. I feel like I wasted a bunch of, I just feel bad. I feel like that's not a thing to do. And then that just got me trying to really think about, when I have these feelings, why am I having them? What are they connected to? Does it even have to do with the person or the thing or the situation, or is it just something to do with me?
Well, I think like to tie it into the whole content creator journey is that I think it's easy, especially if you've never created content before, had an audience before, to think like, this is not a creator who even considers these things. They just crunch out the content or whatever. Right. But, I think like sponsored or not, or whether you agree with someone's, strategic decision on the channel, everyone's just trying to do their freaking best. At the end of the day.
I said I updated my ethics statement, and I actually got rid of a section. I got rid of the embargo section.
You did.
Yes. Not because I want to do embargo videos. I've always said I don't want to, and they do bother me. And there's always only been one thing that I said I would ever do if the opportunity arose. But that's it. I still don't like them. But I was knowing that like people have found that and used that and modeled their own thing after it. Part of me was thinking, well, it's cool to bring this point up because it just might be something that somebody's not thinking of. And so now they're putting their own thing together. They might realize like, oh shoot, this didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
Like somebody wants, like the ethics statement says a thing about I don't work with Amazon resellers.
Yeah.
It's not because that's necessarily bad, but it's because there are so many, you don't know the quality. Yeah. There could be a really reputable one and there could be a not reputable one, and you really don't know.
Too much work to
so it's just, you just,
but that's just your choice.
But that was something I learned from somebody else. I think it was Kevin, the Basic Filmmaker, is the one who pointed that out to me, where it was like, oh, I didn't even know that. So there were certain things like the embargo thing that I put in there because it is how I felt, but also it was like, well, this could be a point I bring up to someone else. But then I started thinking, even though there is only one thing I said I would ever consider doing that for, it would make me sound like a hypocrite because the thing's there and then the thing's there. But also, worse than that, is it could be discouraging to somebody else. Like it's
who wants to do. Yeah. Right. It's like the Joel Haver thing.
Yeah. It could be like
someone who admires you is on board.
Someone
could
feel judged.
Yeah. Someone who is taking your ethics statement, using it as, a template for their own. And now they're looking at it and they're like, oh, I should leave this in because Tom left it in. But what if I want to participate in the embargo?
What if I want to? Or then what if they see me do one and they're like, but he. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why I took it out, because I didn't want there to be anything like that. And then I've also, like, right now I'm wearing the Rode NTH 100 headphones, which came out this past week. And there were a bunch of embargo videos for those. And then I had them in a video several days later, just because that was also just my upload schedule. But there were a number of people who were like, when I posted that video, they said, I'm glad you made this video because I wanted like your thoughts on these since you cover a lot of Rode products. And it's like, oh yeah, the embargo thing can be annoying when your feed gets flooded with like 18 of the same video. But at the same time, if it is a type of thing that you're interested in and there are people you trust, you do kind of want to hear from them quickly, right? Like you don't necessarily go like, okay.
Yeah, I need to know.
I know Tom has the thing, but he's purposely waiting a month to talk about it just to like, but I want to know.
Now that's just pride, isn't it? Like, yeah, see?
Exactly. So I don't know. It doesn't mean that I want to do a bunch of embargo videos. I don't. There's still only one thing I would really ever want to do, but at least as of now. But being more open to the idea of like, I don't want to.
Because embargoes in themselves are not evil. Like
they're just
wrong.
A thing.
Right.
They're not good. They're not bad. They're just a thing. And so same goes with all this stuff. So it's like I just decided that was maybe something that I didn't want to be passing a judgment call on.
Sure.
Without even being asked.
Yeah.
And so I can make my own decision about it. Other people can make their own decision about it, and nobody needs to feel bad no matter what they decide.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Good call.
All right. Well, I think we covered. I think my therapy session, my insurance might not cover more if we go much longer. So thank you for helping me work through this.
I don't know if I contributed anything, but I mean, I'll reiterate again. Like I think this is one of the reasons why I love you, babe. Because I appreciate how thoughtful you are with everything that you do.
Well, I mean, a lot of these like things are things you've helped me to figure out also. And it's really, I'm learning as we're doing this, it's very helpful to have another person to talk to the stuff, not just me staring at the microphone and just trying to get lost in my own thoughts. So it is actually super helpful. Boy, I hope it might have been interesting or helpful to somebody else, or maybe made someone else not feel crazy if they have some of these feelings or recognize them. Because
again, it's not that feelings are wrong or bad. It's just trying to understand why you feel the way
and like
that
I said at the beginning, I've always been happy to think that I'm not a judgmental person, and I'm very open, very accepting, very like, I want other people to succeed. I want to help other people succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a teacher for 11 years, but then to recognize like, well, hey, look, there are all these little things here that maybe that stuff's true, but maybe it could also be better.
Yeah.
And
room for improvement.
2 out of 5, room for improvement. Alrighty, if you have thoughts on this or experiences or anything you want to share, you can send them to tom@enthusiasmproject.com. You can do text, voice, or video. I would definitely be very interested to hear if anybody has any thoughts. And now we got 2 episodes left this season. So I thank you very much, especially if you made it this far, for spending your time with us. Thank you, Heather, for being here to help me go through this. Where do you want to send people if they want more of Heather's awesomeness?
YouTube.com/HeatherJustGreat.
Oh boy. And thanks so much again for spending your time. I hope you have a safe, happy, healthy rest of your week, and we will see you next time.
Bye. I'm tired. So, Tom is playing the outro music.
Oh, we accidentally left Heather's mic open, so if you're hearing this, sorry, but also it's kind of funny.